What's up, y'all? Welcome back, man. I've kept this recipe gatekeep for long enough. I thought I was going to need it for something. Ended up, I don't think I'm going to need it for that. So I want to share it with the masses so you guys can enjoy my banana brandy as much as I do. So today we're going to make a 20-gallon mash of banana brandy, also known as Ugandan waragi. And I'm not talking about that 1960s Ugandan waragi where they turn it into a gin to mass produce it to make a bunch of money off of it. I'm talking about traditional banana brandy made by tribesmen and tribeswomen in Uganda. What piqued my interest about banana brandy so much was I saw the video of them making it in a tribe, and it was just super cool to watch. I suggest you hop on YouTube, search Ugandan waragi, and watch that video. You'll be glad you did. But anyways, back to the mash. We're going to make a 20-gallon mash. We're going to use 40 pounds of bananas. Now, when I say 40 pounds of bananas, that's 40 pounds of the white meat. So you got to buy double. If you're going to use 40 pounds of bananas, you better buy 80 pounds. You can use the peels if you want. I don't. Some people do. Some people like to cook them and toss them in their mash. That's not my deal. I don't do that. But you can if you want. So we're going to use 2 pounds per 1 gallon of water, bananas, 1 pound per 1 gallon water of cane sugar. You could use white sugar. I like the cane sugar because I think it ferments a little softer. We're going to use a bread yeast. Y'all know me. And after we mash these up, we're going to put some pectic enzyme on them, really break everything down. We want to get all those sugars out of it we can. When it comes to aging these, you just let them sit out, ripen up, or you could do what I do. I toss them in the freezer for 48 hours, and they're as black as midnight, ready to go. So let's go on ahead, get these in the freezer. Join me on my journey. Let's get it. There they are, right in the freezer. I'm gonna let these sit for about 48 hours. So they've been sitting in the freezer about 3 days. I had to let them go a little longer. So now we're just gonna peel them. I have found when it comes to peeling these that they are extremely hard to break open up here. It can be. So I just take a pair of scissors. I cut the tops off. And once I cut the tops off, they're easier to peel. But you can see how freezing them and thawing them just turns them into this mush. Now, if you want to reuse the peels, some people do. They'll take them, they'll cook them down, and they'll even treat them like corn and convert starches that are left in them. I ain't doing all that. I just like the meat of the banana. So, if you want to try it, go ahead. I'm sure you won't be upset you did, or try it both ways. And then whatever way you like best, that's your way from then on out. That's how we find out what we like the best. So I'm just going to go on ahead and peel all these bananas, and then I'll come back on the next step. I'm not going to make you watch me do all this. Y'all take care. All right, we got them all shucked. Now we're just going to beat the mess out of them with this 2x4. If you got a drill head with a mixer on it, you can use that. I got this 2x4. This is how I do all my fruit. Beat it with a 2x4. So I ain't gonna make y'all watch me do this. So see y'all in a minute. All right, we got her all beat in. See that mush? Now we're gonna go ahead and add our pectic enzyme. And it's just to break down anything that we didn't by aging them. So we're gonna use this pectic enzyme, pectic. And you could do it by this, by the directions. I don't. So what I like to do is I like to measure with my heart. And so I just dust the top a little bit. And then going ahead and mix that in there. And, everybody's got their own way on how they use this. Figure out the way that works for you. This is how I like to use it. So I mix it in there, get it mixed in real good. And let's give her another little coating on top. And now we're gonna let this sit for 24 hours. We'll come back in 24 hours and we'll do the rest of this mash. Some people let it sit an hour. I like to let it sit 24 hours. So that's how I do it. All right, it's been 24 hours. Let's check out this bananas and see what this pectic enzyme did to them. Oh, you can definitely see it's a lot more liquid in here. A lot more broken down than it was. All right, let's move on to the next step. We're gonna heat up 10 gallons of water. All right, we're gonna get our 10 gallons of water good and hot. Not quite boiling, but pretty close. Like this is about 195. And we're gonna take and put our water on our bananas and then let it sit for an hour. And so we're just gonna dump all 10 gallons in here. And we're gonna let that sit for about 1 hour and do its thing. And then we'll come back and we'll add our sugar. All right, while we're waiting on our hot water to do our thing on our fruit, we're gonna talk about potential alcohol and starting gravities. With my fruits, I like my fruits to be at 1.060 or about 8% potential alcohol. That's where I like my fruits to be. I don't want too much alcohol. I don't want the sugar to overpower it. We use sugar because it saves us money. So, and how to use this is when you look at this, you'll see these numbers here. And this is what we use for our potentials. So I like my fruits at 0.06. And if you spin it around, you can see it reads 8%. So this side is percentage, this side is numbers. So once we drop it in at our start, we want it at 0.06. And we drop this in, if it's not at 0.06, if it's too low, we add more sugar. If we have too much sugar, we add more water. And that's the simplest way to explain this. When you add sugar, it increases your potential. When you add water, it lowers your potential. And everybody likes it in a different place. I like my fruits at 0.06, 8%. I like my grain at 0.08, around 10, 11%. It's just all a thing. You got to figure out your own way. So we're going to drop this in. It's going to read here. And as it ferments and the yeast consume the sugars and turn them into alcohol, this will drop. And you'll see it in action over the next few shots. So that's all there is to reading and using a triple scale hydrometer. So triple scale measures sugar by volume, and the proofing hydrometer I use later on will be for proofing down your liquor. So, all right, let's add our sugar. Just going ahead and add 20 pounds of sugar. Mix it in. It'll dissolve. If you want to cook it on the stove in hot water and dissolve it, you can. That's totally up to you. I don't. That's hot enough to dissolve this, so I'm just going to dump all the sugar in here. All right, it's been about an hour. I like to let my hot water, my sugars dissolve in that water. That's why I put it in so hot. I don't have to cook. If you ain't running flame, you don't have to worry about scorching. So now we're going to go ahead and add the remaining 10 gallons of water. All right, we're going to take a gravity reading. And it's too thick just to drop it in and see, it won't move. So we got a graduated cylinder and a brew bag. So I'm just going to stick the cylinder inside the brew bag. And hold down there until it's full. You can see it. You see we're floating. And it's hard to see. But we are right there. We're close. We're between 0.050 and 0.060. We're right in there. So if I wanted to raise the gravity, I would add more sugar. If it was too high, I would add more water. I'm gonna leave it right where it is. That's perfectly fine with me. So Now we're gonna take a temp test. I want this about 80 degrees because of the yeast I'm using. Depending on the yeast you're gonna use will depend on the temperature you want. I use SAF instant red yeast. This is what I'm gonna use. So I like to pitch this about 80 degrees. So let's see what the temp is. And we're up here almost 99. So we're gonna have to let this sit for a few hours. We could add cold water, but then we'd have to add more sugar, and we don't want to do that. And so right where we're at, we're just going to let this sit for a few hours until we get down to 80 degrees, and we're going to come back and pitch our yeast. All right, we cooled down. Let's see where we're at. $81 degrees. It's close enough to 80 for me. We're going to pitch our yeast. Like I said, we're going to use SAF instant bread yeast. And when it comes to measuring how much, measure with your heart. I like to generously dust the top and just give her a mix. That's all there is to it. We're going to throw a top on it and let her start fermenting, man. We'll come back and check the gravity along the way, see how she's progressing. But we'll come back in the morning and we'll see if we got a good cap on here or not. So time to just let it do its thing, man. See y'all in the morning.
Now, when it comes to adding nutrients, I don't add any nutrients to my mash, especially with fruit or corn. I feel like there's enough nutrients in that mash to feed me. You know, there's enough nutrients in that grain and that fruit to feed me and keep me healthy. So I don't need to worry about putting nutrients in my mash. The only time I would ever use nutrients is if I'm doing a sugar wash, because there's nothing for natural nutrients for it to feast off of. So if you want to add nutrients to it, you can. It's totally up to you. That's your choice. I don't, but you can.
Boy, look at that cap. That's a good looking cap of nanners right there, man. Good and thick. Get down in there. Oh, look at them bubbles. Yeah, we got a good fermentation going on here. So some people push their cap down as it ferments. I don't. I just like to let it sit and do its thing. So we're just going to throw the lid on, let it ferment, come back in about a week and check the gravity and see where we're at.
All right, I'm going to do an open air fermentation, and that's just where I just set a lid over the top. If you want to do a closed fermentation like normally you see with wines, and you put an airlock with a bubbler just to seal everything in there, that's fine. I just do open air. As it ferments, it'll create a nice layer of CO2 between the cap, the head of the cap, and the top of your vessel. And then that layer of CO2 will keep the bugs and all that out. So even though I'm doing open air fermentation, I still have something over the top of it so that it can create a nice CO2 barrier in there. So again, if you want to close fermentation with a bubbler and all that, go ahead and do that. Ain't nothing wrong with that. If you want to open air, do that, man. You know, a lot of this is doing what you want to do and how you want to do it. You know, that's why we're home distillers. We do what we want. So do you.
It's been about a week. Let's go ahead and pop her open and check her out. Oh, she got a nice little cap on her. She's still fermenting. See how as it's fermented, it's moved down. We're almost at 1.00. So we're just gonna let it sit and monitor it. See y'all in a few more days. All right, it's been a few more days. Let's see if that cap dropped or if we've got some other things to deal with. All right, we still got stuff floating on the top. Now this is real common with fruit. This is unfermentables. Like this is like the pulp and stuff your body doesn't process, you just poop it out. So we're just gonna skim this off the top. This happens real frequently with certain types of fresh fruits, especially peaches. The skins do this real bad. So we're just gonna skim this stuff off the top and then we're gonna pump this into a secondary and you can see that we are completely done. Oh, there's no sugar left in this thing. That's all we're gonna do is just scoop all this non-fermentable off the top and then move it into a secondary. So we're just gonna take a strainer and scoop through. Now don't throw this bucket of stuff away
I got a way that I'm gonna show you how we get all of this mash out of it, because we want all the liquid we can get out of this. So don't throw this away, just put it in a bucket and save it. That's all we're gonna do. We're just gonna scoop all this out of here, and then we're gonna pump this into a secondary. And then I'm gonna show you how we get all of the liquid out of everything. So I'll come back to you once we got this all done and we're ready to move into the secondary. All right, we got most of it. That's enough. So let's go ahead and drop this in there. You can see that thing's almost disappeared. We have fermented all of our sugars. This thing is completely done. It's time to rack it off and let it clarify so we can run it. Now, you can pump straight from this into your still and run it if that's what you want to do. I like to move this into a secondary, let it sit for a while and really clarify. I think the clearer your mash is, the better your end run is. We just got a standard pond pump. We're gonna toss a brew bag around this and toss it down in here and pump our mash over and get everything we can. And we don't care about getting yeast and we don't care about all that stuff. It can all come into the secondary. That's fine, because this is gonna sit and clarify. All right, now we're just pumping. We're gonna keep our pump at the top of the mash and move it down as we go to keep out of the yeast bed. And we're just moving into a secondary. I like to use a clearer secondary so I can see the yeast bed in the bottom after it settles, and you'll realize later on. So we're just gonna pump over. Once we get to the bottom, I'll show you how we're gonna deal with the sludge in the bottom and the leftover that we pulled off the top. All right, we're down to the bottom. Yeah, I dropped my pump all the way into the bottom. The way it could do what it does. See our mash bed, it's a good looking mash. So now I'm gonna show you how to deal with this and this and get every ounce of mash out of it, because that's what we want. But we don't want to have the yeast and all that left. So we'll show you how we're gonna deal with all that. So let's deal with the sludge. All right, now it's over here. You can see a lot better. This white stuff, that's just yeast and crap that's gonna settle once it sits. But you can see our triple scale is buried. This thing's ready to run after we let it clarify. I'm gonna let it clarify. The clearer your mash, the better it's gonna taste. I'm gonna strain the unfermentables I skimmed off the top and all the leftover sludge in the bottom. As I'm gonna take this bucket, you can see I drilled a whole bunch of holes in this bucket. I'm gonna put a brew bag inside it, and then we're gonna take all the sludge and just dump it inside and let gravity do the work. We're gonna hang it over another vessel. So I'm gonna show you how to do it. It's real easy. Let's get it. I got my brew bag inside my bucket. So spin it over a bigger vessel. That way the mash can drain out of it. So what I'm gonna do is, gonna take my sludge left over and I'm just gonna dump it in. And so I'm gonna go ahead and put everything I got in here. Now you can see how wet it is. We're gonna let this sit for 24 hours. We'll come back tomorrow and I'll show you how much drier it is. And we're just gonna let it rain. And if you had a big giant 100-gallon mash, you can just keep putting it in as it drains down. Let it sit. You can use a couple buckets. You could always just discard what's left over. So we're just gonna let this roll on. Come back tomorrow, and then once we come back, we're gonna take whatever is in here and put it in a smaller, clear vessel and let it clarify. So we'll see y'all tomorrow. We'll check it out in 24 hours. You can see I was already messing with it, but look at that cake. There's still a little bit of liquid in there. You could squeeze that if you want to. I'm not going to. You could save this or check it out. I'm gonna chuck it. You can see it already started clarifying. Like, look at all that liquid we got out of there. So now we're just gonna take this and rack it off in a better vessel. So we're just gonna take what we got left, what we strained out, and dump it in this
other vessel. And you can see with how it's already separated, there's going to be stuff left in the bottom of this. And that's cool. You want to dump it all in there, all the liquid. All right, there it is. I put it in this type of bottle because it's higher, and then all of our yeast and our crap will settle down here in the very bottom. We'll be able to get it off the top real easy. And like I said, that's a lot of work to do for, you know, a couple gallons, maybe a gallon, probably a couple gallons. So, but if you was doing a big giant mash, it would definitely be worth getting all that liquid out of there. So we're gonna let this settle about a week. This is gonna settle the same amount of time as our other secondary of our main mash. So we'll come back after she settles. See y'all in a week. All right, you can see what we got out of our bottoms, our unfermentables, everything that was left over that we put through our bucket. Sat for a week, it's clarified. We're just gonna siphon off the top and not get into that. So I'm gonna let this sit another week, and then I'll just add it to my mash when I go to run. It's been 1 week. We still got some stuff floating, some little banana bits. There's a lot of stuff in these bananas that your body just doesn't process, but you can definitely see how much clearer it's gotten. You can see the yeast bed on the bottom. So what we're going to do is we're just going to move it again and rack it again. You know, sometimes you got to rack it more than once. It's just the way it is. All right, instead of skimming the stuff off the top, I'm just going to put 2 bags over my pump and transfer it into my next rack. All right, so we moved it all except for what had settled in the bottom. Look at all that trub that settled in the bottom of this thing. So this is why I use the secondary. But with bananas, you gotta rack it quite a bit to get all that nasty out that you don't want. So this is gonna sit in here for a week, and then we'll come back and check it out. We're gonna take what's left of this, put it through the filter into a tall vessel, let it separate just like we did with the before. So we're just gonna do the same thing. And see you in a week after this wraps. All right, for this next part, we're gonna macerate. And if you don't know what macerating is, you know, make you jokes. Everybody does. So macerating is kind of like how you take a tea bag and you put it in your water and you steep it and your flavor releases in to your liquid. That's pretty much what macerating is. So I like to now, you know, after learning a lot of different things throughout my journey, I do things a lot differently now than I used to. So I like to macerate fresh fruit in my fermented mash before I run for a few days. So what I like to do is I take a little bit of potassium sorbate and I put my yeast to sleep. It doesn't kill your yeast. It puts them to sleep, really slows them down. And then I'll take some fresh fruit and I'll throw it in there for a few days. And I just strain that fresh fruit out when I'm putting my mash into my pot and I go to run it. So we're gonna add a little bit of this to our mash. We're gonna throw some fresh bananas in there, give it a few days, and then we're gonna run it. And we're gonna run this thing on a new still that me and Hillbilly built. It's super awesome. You guys come check it out. All right, we're gonna put our sorbate in, and it just takes a nice little pinch. We're just gonna put that yeast to sleep. We're gonna mix this up real nice and let it sit. And we're gonna put our fresh bananas in. I like them with a little bit of green and a lot of yellow. I don't want them real ripe because I don't want them falling apart and becoming a nightmare to get out. So I got a whole bundle of bananas, about 6 bananas. Here's half of them. I'm just gonna break them in half and chuck them in. I don't cut them up because I don't want them falling apart. I want them easy to get out. So you can see how clear it is. Look how clear that mash is from sitting. She's been sitting a while. You can see all the way to the bottom. So we're gonna let these bananas sit in here for about 3 days. And I'll come back to you. We're gonna load this in that new still. And we're gonna make some really fine banana brandy. Look how clear that mash is. It's to the bottom, baby. All right, time to put our mash into our still. Check out this 20-gallon rig me and Hillbilly built. So we're just gonna put our mash in here. We're gonna fill it up to no higher than here or as much mash as we have. So we'll come back to you after we get her filled up and we cap her off and fire it up. And today we're running on electric. All right, we got our mash in our pot. You can see our leftover bananas we macerated in there. Dude, take those and make banana bread out of them. You'll be glad you did. See, we got it almost full where we want it to. So today we're running off electric, 5500 watt, 240 volt SCR. So we're gonna run off this SCR here. This is a dual because we're running doubles. So we're gonna kick this on. We're gonna turn it up almost all the way. We're gonna go 90% power. And as soon as we start getting our heads, then we'll turn that down and dial it into where we want. So Hillbilly's got a double chiller setup going. It uses a small vat of water. So nice Weber chillers, man. They do the job. So, all right, now we're gonna load up our infuser. All right, let's talk about our infuser. So this is the jar infuser that I came up with that we sell on our website. We put our liquid in here and we dump it in as we run. In our infuser today, we're going to use a high-end banana alcohol because we want that banana flavor, that smell to come through. So this is what we're going to use in our infuser, along with, I've got a little bit of banana brandy from a previous run I'm going to mix in with this. You don't have to, but if you got it, why not use it? So I'm going to fill this up as much as I can with our banana alcohols and a little bit of flavorless alcohol if you have it. And then we'll put it on our thumper. All right, you can see we got our infuser on our thumper. So we start our thumper empty because in the beginning we want our thumper to act as a slobber box and just blow our heads right through it without double distilling it. So we leave it empty. Once we collect our heads and four shots, then we'll go ahead and drop some liquid in there. It'll raise our liquid level above our down comber, and then it'll start distilling again and we'll start doubling. So you can see we got her all hooked up. Big old head on that 20. Check that bad dude out. So yeah, me and Hillbilly made this. So we're just gonna let this run until we start dripping heads. And then once we start dripping heads, we're gonna turn our electric down and we'll talk about heads. See y'all later. All right, so we're gonna heat up full power. Full power for this is 55, about 23 amps we get out of this. So we're gonna heat up full power, and then once we get good and hot and start dripping our heads, then we'll turn it down and dial it in. All right, we're dripping heads. Turn it down a little bit so we wasn't running too fast. So for a 20-gallon wash, we should collect about 1,000 milliliters of heads, which is a quart, or a little bit more. It's mainly about taste and smell. So I'm gonna collect a quart and then probably a pint, and I'll set that pint off to use later on for something else. So after we're done collecting our heads and four shots, then we'll start using our infuser. So we'll come back to you once we get into our hearts. All right, I pulled a quart of heads, four shots. I'm gonna throw these out, or you could keep it, throw it in your tailspin. I throw them in a tailspin. You could use this fire starter. So when I switch over to my hearts, I'm gonna collect 1 pint after my heads, just to make sure we're coming out clear. I don't wanna waste the whole quart and it not be right. And then I'm gonna use this for something else later on. So I'm not gonna mix this in with my drinking liquor, but this is good drinkable liquor. It's just really high proof. I pulled my pint, and you see it's good and clear. You can see right through this. She good high proof, probably about 140, 150, maybe 155. So we'll test this and see where we're at. Now that we switched to our hearts jar, we're going to go on ahead and add our infusion. Now there's a couple different ways you can do this infusion. You can dump a lot at one time, come back later, dump a lot again. You can dump it all at once and be done. I like to dump a little bit as I run to try to keep my flavors constant. So my flavor on my last jar is the same as the flavor on my first jar. So here in the beginning, I'm just gonna pop this open. I'm gonna watch this drop a little bit, and I'm gonna shut her down. Get that flavor in there, boy. And that's it. We're just gonna let it run. I got a half-gallon jar here because I know I'm gonna collect over a gallon. So I'm going with a big half-gallon jar. We're gonna dump as we run. So we're just gonna let this run. We're gonna run all the way down to 100. When we get down to 100 proof, we're going to switch over to a small jar and catch from 100 to 90. And that'll come into play later. All right, that first jar we got is about 145. So, you know, we should get close to 2 gallons of hearts out of this thing. So we're just going to run this. We're going to run this down. All right, we're coming up on our last jar, a couple jars. I'm going to dump what's left in here, and then I'm going to leave it open. And just let it reflux flavor out of there. I'm just going to open it up all the way. I'm just going to leave it open. Let it reflux more flavor that's left in that jar that I didn't get out. So coming up on the end, we're just going to let it run until we hit 100. We've reached 100 proof. Now we're going to switch over to tails after we collect this one jar. All right, we're done with our run. Looks like we ended up with, we got our heads 4 shots. Our first little jar I like to save off for something else. We got our hearts, and then this is around our 190 proof jars. We're gonna let these sit till tomorrow. And if we come back and they're cloudy, we know they got tails in them and we'll chuck them. If it's not cloudy, then it goes in with the rest of this, and we're gonna proof it down to about 100 so we can drink. All right, we're in the tails. So you can run it down as far as you want. I'll run down to 10. Some people stop at 30, 40, 50. Really, it's whatever you want, man. You can use these tails to bump your next mash. You can save up till you have enough tails to do a tails run, get you some neutral spirits, or you cannot collect tails at all. It is totally your choice. You do what you want to do. But I collect this down to 10. I'm gonna run this gallon and see where I'm at. Now, when it comes to your tails, there is a certain point of your tails that is commonly referred to as sweet water, low wines. And usually people will run their tails down to about 30, and then they collect from 30 to 20, and they save that sweetwater low wines to proof with. And then, but not me, I just collect all my tails all the way down, and then I keep it all the same. But if you want to try proofing with your sweet wines, then I suggest you give that a try. Run your tails down to 30, switch over, collect from 30 to 20, use that to proof with. You might like it, you might not. I don't like how it comes out, so I don't do that, but it's something you can try. Give it a shot. You never know. You might like it. Since we started talking about low wines and sweet water, I figured I would go ahead and break up my tails run into low wines. So we have our first. This is from like 90 down to 30 proof. And then I switched over from 30 to 10, and I kept in this bottle. And you can definitely see the difference. This is a lot clearer. So, you know, when you get down these low wines, a lot of the oils are gone and they move out. And then you get this nice sweet water. And I don't find it sweet. Some people do. Some people like to proof with it. If you want to proof with the low wines, you can. Or you can just proof with distilled water like I'm going to. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Let's proof these hearts. All right, it's time to proof. Remember we talked about our first jar? We're not going to add this to our hearts. We're going to keep this for something later on. So remember we made our cut at about 90 to 100. We saved this last jar. It's hard to tell on video, but this jar is a little cloudy. So this is going to be our tails. That's where it's going to start. Any cloudy to it, not going in the pot. So we're going to go ahead and take our hearts, which ended up being about 1.5 gallons. We're going to add them all to one vessel. And then we're going to use distilled water. No minerals added. Make sure it ain't got minerals. We're going to proof down to this. We're going to get down to about 100. That's where I like my brandy. That's where I'm going to take it to. You know, and most people, they'll put it on ice when they drink it, so it'll knock it down. But so let's go ahead and combine everything into one vessel. You can drink that part off the counter if you want. So I'm not gonna make you watch me do this. We'll combine everything into this vessel, and we'll come back when it's time to proof. All right, looks like our combined distillate's right around 130. Just about 130. That's what we expect when we combine our run at the end. We're only running a single thumper. Right around 130. So we're just going to add this back to our vessel. We're going to add in some distilled water. If you want to know exactly how much distilled water, there are calculators. Like HillbillyMoonshine.com has calculators that helps you know how much water to add or what your proof is when you're making mixed drinks. Real helpful. I'm just kind of close enough. It'll be all right. It'll get you drunk. Ideally, we would like to use this with our distillate at what it's calibrated for. This one's calibrated for 60, as you can see right there on the right. Hard to see. We're about room temp. It's going to be off a couple points. Not enough for me to really care about going on there. But if you really wanted to know, you could find the chart and do the conversions. But so we're just going to dump this back into our vessel and start adding distilled water until we get to the proof we want. All right, we're just going to add water a little bit at a time. And while it might take quite a bit early on to get it to move, once you get your proof moving, it's going to move really fast. So it takes a lot early, a little later on. So don't add too much. And now we'll give her a little shimmy. And then we're going to check our proof. All right, that much water brought us down to about 120. So we're just going to keep adding until we get down to 100 proof, man. I'm not going to make you watch. You know, rinse and repeat, man. Rinse and repeat. If you add too much, then you're going to wind up with a 95 proof. As long as you don't get down to 80, it shouldn't cloud. So we're just going to add our water till we get to 100, man. I'll come back when we get to 100, and it's time to bottle. All right, we got her down to about 100. We're right there, right at 100. Give or take a little bit. Close enough. Close enough to get you drunk. So now I'm just going to let this sit for about 30 minutes or so. Let it do its thing. I like to let stuff do its thing, man. I'm a big, let stuff mix and macerate. That's my thing. That's what I do. So I'll be back. We're going to jar this up, and then it's my favorite part, the taste test. All right, we're going to go ahead and jar it up, man. You know what I'm saying? What's the point of good alcohol? You can't share it with your family and friends. Ain't no money to be made here. This is about passion and love. This is about passion and love. That's it. And let's be for real. You give somebody this jar of liquor, if they're not a big drinker, man, they're going to have that jar for a year, and they're going to go buy their stuff that they drink on normally. So but let's go ahead and jar it up, man. Yeah, I like to put it in pints. Brandy's expensive, man. This ain't no corn liquor. So put it in pints. Brandy's a fine lady and should be treated as such. So treat her with class, man. She's a classy drink. I had a buddy once, my buddy Hooch, we was at his house drinking. And he's like, man, on the old movies when they talk about going to the den, having a drink at the end of the night, it was always a fine brandy, man. So I do love me a brandy. Fine brandy. Dude, this brandy smells so good. That's it, man. I'm going to draw this up. I'll come back at the end when I'm done. There she is in all her glory. All of our hard work right here to be enjoyed by family and friends, and a lot to be enjoyed by myself. Now the question is, which one do we choose for the best part? I mean, let's be for real. We know what one we're going to choose. All right, man, let's go try this out. Let's get it.
Banana brandy, motherfucker. Banana brandy.
Banana brandy. That's going to be a little different than the last jar that came off the still.
Smells like nanners.
Nanners. If you could put a smell in there and trick that palate, man, it goes a long way.
It tastes like bananas all the way through. Sweet. Tastes like banana. And then when it carries, like, it actually tastes like real fucking bananas. Like, on the middle of your tongue. Like, at first it's nanner, but then it's like you ate a fucking banana. You know what I'm saying?
The cookness comes through late.
Let me see it again. And this is, what's the difference between this jar and this jar?
This was still proof. This come off at 100 proof, and then this is just a combined.
Oh, this is the blended.
Yes, this is the blended down. Because you remember how when we was talking about the end of it didn't have all that nose at the beginning had?
I still got banana on my tongue. It's sweet. That's really good. That's fucking excellent, man. I mean, you don't beat that. That's about as good as you can make bananas be. It's about as good as you can make a banana fucking brandy. There's
A clear distillate without putting anything in the...
yeah, I mean
Hey.
it's bananas all fucking through it. It's still bananas on my tongue right fucking out like.
Made in our new still. Get you one of these. Anyone, you ever try? You see how the nose is way different on that back jar as opposed to the infusion in that
Yeah.
high early.
This one don't smell as much as bananas as
No.
that one does. It did at first, like the other day. This one smells kind of like. You get a little bit, but it smells like water.
Well, that's also the end run. You know, that's the very end. So you figured that was coming out of the still at what, half water, anyways. Whereas this, before I proofed this down, this was like 120.
But that tastes
130.
just as good. It tastes just as
Yeah,
fucking
it
good.
just doesn't have the nose that
Yeah.
the infuser puts into the high proof distillate early. The infusion puts that nose in there, and then towards later on, you get a lot more of the cooked and the oils, and when you combine them, you still have that good flavor, but then the nose, the palate of early on, the infusion really changes it.
Yeah, you couldn't make bananas better than that.
Thank you, Daddy. Thank you.
You couldn't. I mean, it's as good as you're gonna get with fucking banana, straight up.
Well, I appreciate it.
It's pretty good.
You know, I know you like bananas, but you don't love bananas.
Yeah,
I love bananas, and it's one of my things. Like, dude, banana candy, pops. Dude, I love bananas. So,
I'm scared of fruit that's shaped like wieners. I have a phobia.
you know, I'm attracted to the yellow tree dicks. You know, maybe it's the shape.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, banana's not my favorite thing. It's like the last thing I grab. Like, if you got some bowl cherries, I'm fucking them up. You know what I mean? If you got a bowl of blueberries and you can put some sugar on them, or strawberries.
Put some sugar on your fruit.
Yeah.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah. But
That diabetes, it was healthy. Now it's extra healthy.
but I do enjoy, like, if somebody made a really good banana pudding.
Oh, dude, that's my soul, man. Like,
It's not my favorite thing, but I do
but
enjoy it. It is good. I will eat the
You
fuck
can
out of it.
replace my blood with banana pudding. You know, and like you said, it just all depends on what it is. Like, there's some lemon things I don't like, but then, like, we go to Mikey's and they make that lemon fizz.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I would genocide you for a thing of lemon
Lemon's
fizz.
my
man.
shit. Lemon. I'm real big on lemons.
Same.
But
All right, well, thanks for joining me, Phil Billy.
see you later, bitches.
See you later. No, old school.
So there you have it. Banana brandy in a jar, man. I appreciate Phil Billy sitting in and doing a taste test with me, man. I really enjoyed making this. Even though it's not a true brandy because we added sugar, I like to call it a hillbilly brandy. You know, we're home distillers. We do what we want. We don't have to follow all these rules like distilleries. So, you know, I appreciate you coming along with me on this journey and making this jar with me, man. I had so much fun, and it's a lot of hard work. So, man, just know when you want to make a fine brandy, it's going to take a while. Like, this was a long process. I bet this process took me 2 to 3 months. I mean, hell, if you watch the first scene and the last scene, I lost about 40 pounds during shooting this video. It's a long process. It's just like making a fine wine, man. You just got to let it sit and clarify and age out, and it'll be right. Trust me. So just be patient. Let it do its thing. And patience is rewarded, you know. Your patience is rewarded, especially with your mash. You will be really glad that you let it sit and clarify. So just be patient, keep at it, learn from your mistakes, man, and just keep on keeping on. But like I said, man, you can do this at home as simply as you want. You want one of those stills? Click the link, get you one. Don't want super fancy? Man, we got them easy keg stills. You can make liquor on anything at home, man. So just go on ahead, get it done. You're going to be glad you did. Like I said, man, if you got any questions, comment, hit us up on Facebook. You get me. You want to talk to Phil Billy's phone number's on the website, man. So anything y'all need, you want a still made by real moonshiners, get you one, man, and make you some liquor. Any type of brandy you want, man. Use this recipe, change your fruit, do your thing. Don't be afraid when you make mistakes, because you're going to make mistakes. And that's what it's all about, man. Learning, making mistakes, and, you know, learning. That's how we learn. We make mistakes. That's how we learn. Don't get discouraged. Keep making your liquor. Keep doing. Y'all shine on, man. Take care. See y'all next time.